Hello, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning. We were talking about what to speak today on our little video to speak about, and we were thinking that we keep on mentioning these different terms about Chinese medicine and different techniques and different tools to use, and then we realized we kind of haven't gone over some of the basics. And the basics are actually really fascinating, and we wanted to start to dive in a little bit. So we thought first we would start with a history of Chinese medicine. It's only 5,000 years.
Only.
So this is going to be, we're just going to keep on going until we get through each piece of it. So get your food, your water for the next 10 years.
Remember the sleep thing we talked about, that you need things to help you sleep? This will.
Yes, exactly. No, we're actually going to do it in 2 minutes or less.
Oh. I have to speak faster. So Chinese medicine, as Laura said, has a written tradition of like 3,500 years, and they found archaeological digs and found out that they found acupuncture needles, they found bones with treatments written on them. So we know that, and they can't date some of that stuff, but just through archaeological digs and dating other things around that area. There's a myth and a philosophy about how this started. There's something called the Warring Years. There were a lot of wars in China over their history. And the Warring Years, a warrior was so tired from days of battle, and he had fever, and he was fatigued, and he was so tired he leaned on his spear, and the tip pierced a point on him, and it cleared his head, and he felt better. And long story short, they just saw that happening or heard about that happening and started developing it from that point on of trying different things, piercing the body, as we talked about with acupressure. The Chinese were no different. Something hurt, I think they touched it and rubbed it. But when they went further with needling, now they had needles fashioned from stone. They're called Bian, B-I-A-N, and fire-branded thorns. Thank God we don't live in that era anymore. We use surgically sterilized, disposable, single-use only needles. So very thin. So as that developed, the philosophy around that developed. They started tracking parts of the body. They started associating different points with different organs of the body. So there are 12 main meridians that are bilateral, as we talked about before, which means both sides of the body. And
so yes, the history is going back as much as 5,000 years, right? I think that's when that's what I read about the archaeological digs.
Right.
And then the interesting thing about the point that was pierced on the soldier is that it was I think it was a lung point.
Lung 2, I think.
So just with everything that we're dealing with right now, and then noticing that those lung symptoms cleared up. So yeah, I thought that's kind of a cool story.
Right.
But going back into history, one other thing I think is really interesting. Rick had mentioned that the written history is a few thousand years old, and that our main texts that we learn from now are still based on something called the Yellow Emperor's Classic, and that is from those thousands of years ago.
2200 or 220 BC, I think, is when it was written.
So yeah, super old, and interesting that the principles and the medical theory in it is still
what we apply today.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
it was the foundation that continued on.
Right.
There would probably be more information, but one of the emperors burned all the books or something. So this was handed down also family to family. But that Yellow Emperor's Classic is really kind of the foundational text of what we use, and it's developed, as I said, since then in many different ways. There's more information, but the basics are still the same. The foundation comes from this little symbol right here. This is by our glass artist named Nancy Gong.
Nancy, if you're watching, you might notice this.
So this is the yin-yang symbol. A lot of people have seen that. A lot of martial arts studios have that. A lot of advertising people use that. It really means yin is female, yang is male, yin is inside, yang is outside. It's all opposites. And so you can see again that it's a curved line, not just a spherical straight line. That means, and there's a black dot in the white and a white dot in the black. That means there's a little bit of yin within yang, a little bit of yang within yin. So we're always trying to seek balance. We did not choose the name of our clinic by accident. The foundational aspect of this medicine is to create balance. So there's maybe too little yin or too much yang, and so we try to bring them so you have more balance of yin, more balance of yang, almost like a seesaw, like a teeter-totter. You never want to be static because that's death. So teeter-totter, just always want to be in that flex.
Yep.
So.
And that line that you see, that swirl, it is indicating that there's always change going on and there's movement. So one changes into the other, yin changes into yang, yang changes into yin. And one cannot exist without the other. If we think of yin, yin is usually classified as like dark and cold and wet and female, and yang is more lightness and warmth and male. And
I think the Chinese were very sexist.
Well, no, because I think
just kidding.
I think that there's wonderful benefits to both. Like, for example, right now, if we break down what's going on with COVID, with a fever, you don't necessarily want all that extra yang, right?
That heat.
We're trying to shift that into more of a yin, type of situation where you're not, as hot and you're cooling it. So with everything in life, including health, we're trying to balance this yin and yang. And it's a very simple principle if you think about it. And I just gave the example of fever. If you're feeling too hot, we try to balance it out by cooling it off and balancing out the yin and yang. We look at our movements, or we've talked about exercise. And are we balancing our yin and yang? Are we moving enough? Are we exercising enough? Are we being too yin and resting too much? Then we want to balance it out with our yang side and get moving a little bit. If we're always putting ourselves out there and we are, constantly on the go, 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 do we need to do something that would be more of a yang type of energy? Do we need to do something more yin, like rest and meditate, so our brain isn't so busy and so yang and moving all over the place? So we're always breaking down our health, our habits, our lifestyle choices into yin and yang. Everything, day going into night, is yin and yang.
Sun and moon.
Yep.
Inside, outside.
And you really can't have one without the other. And that is one of the beauties of it. And that's why there's a dot of each in each side. So you always have a little bit of yang within yin and a little bit of yin within yang. And that's really what keeps us balanced. And like Rick said, you don't want everything perfect, although we're going towards that goal, because in Chinese medicine, the only time that you're completely balanced is really after you pass away.
That's what they say. That's what the static. Yep.
So it's really it's a beautiful concept. We see it in nature. We're seeing it now as the seasons change, and we go from cooler seasons to warmer seasons.
Which is more yin.
Yeah.
Into more yang.
Yep. But we need every season.
Days get longer. Yeah.
Right. So how you can use this at home is, let's say you're feeling extra thirsty and you're getting headaches or something. When that dryness is yang, then you would want to introduce more yin and drink more water. Let's say you're just doing a lot. Our fantastic healthcare workers right now that are just,
overworking.
Yeah, they got to realize that at a certain point, you have to balance it out with resting if they have that choice. Because otherwise, if you get too much yang going, you're going all the time, you're going to burn yourself out. So you need that balance. So always remembering that as well. And right now, it could be the opposite. Some people are feeling down because they're locked up, and
inside more, or just internal more.
Yeah, and you might find yourself sleeping a lot. And, we talked about sleep, which is more of a yin state. And if you're getting more than like 8 to 9 hours, it might be too much for the body, and then the body actually does not react as well. So you would want to introduce more yang, maybe get up and get moving. So it's kind of that balance throughout life. And also when you're looking at your food, you want to look at that as well. So we had talked about earlier, there's some people that are really into just eating raw and cold food, and we really want to balance that out with some warm foods as well. So keeping that balance.
So as you can see, it's the foundation of everything. You can apply yin and yang, the theory of yin and yang, to everything.
Yeah.
And that's not our way of looking at the world. It is part of our way of looking at the world, but it really is just that easy that you can look at. If you know if yin means inside, yang means outside, yin means dark, yang means light. You can just apply any of those things. Taste, hot, cold, up, down, in, out, sun, moon. There's so many variation on the theme, but it's very simple. we're explaining this because it is really that simple. I didn't realize until my third year of acupuncture school how simple the Chinese and logically they laid it out. And so that's why we're trying to lay a foundational aspect, because we refer to it a lot when we talk about yin and yang. You've heard us say that, yin points, yang points. So we'll develop that as we go along. So.
Like I think I mentioned it the other day because someone had asked about menopause. And I said, oh, that's yin deficiency. So the yin is the cooling, the moistening aspect of the body. And if it's deficient, then we're having more of heat and dryness symptoms.
Which is yang.
And that comes along with menopause. So the yin is deficient. So what we would try to do with acupuncture points, herbs, food, that type of thing, is build it back up. And that's another thing about traditional Chinese medicine. I called this episode TCM 101. When I say TCM, it just stands for traditional Chinese medicine. And we're always speaking about, not only does that include acupuncture, but also herbs, lifestyle choices, nutrition, exercise, like we talked about Tai Chi, Qigong, the different adjunct therapies like moxibustion and cupping. It's such a wide range of really lifestyle and also medical theory with traditional Chinese medicine. But yin and yang is really the basic, and that is why we named our clinic Balance.
That's it.
Because we're balancing yin and yang.
True.
All right. I
Another
hope that was
shout
helpful.
out. Again, this is our
Nancy
Gong, our glass artist friend, made this. She's a very talented glass artist here.
It's a mirror, because if you use it for feng shui, which is a whole different topic, then it is really makes your space very harmonious.
And feng shui is about balance also. Someday, one of these times, we'll talk about that too.
It is. So, it is. It's wonderful. Yes, and then I think tomorrow we're going to talk about some basics about points and meridians. That's when we're going to, be able to really help you guys with the acupressure, because we'll have a little bit of background about that.
Foundational, yeah.
And we'll show you a couple points tomorrow. All right. Thanks for joining us. And
hello, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Take care out there.
Bye.
Bye.